So we have about an hour today. Thank you, Greg. Yeah, so we are going to be recording this listening session so you all can reference it or share it with your colleagues so that you get some important information about this opportunity. So to get us started here, so my name is Matt Craigie. I'm the County's Economic Development Manager. This is a listening session. This is a conversation. This is an opportunity to talk with you all about this funding opportunity that we are releasing under the county's American Rescue Plan Act dollars. So these are dollars provided to the county and with the direction of the Board of County Commissioners to be directed to workforce development. And if you've jumped into the RFEI, which I realize isn't the most convenient of acronyms, kind of a long one there, Request for Expression of Interest. This is our primary process for seeking partnerships and funding programs and services with some of the dollars, again, that the Board of County Commissioners allocated under the county's Tranche 1 dollars. A little housekeeping here. We've all been on Zoom for a long time. Y'all know to stay on mute. Everyone's doing well there. We are, again, recording this so that folks can come back and take a look, folks that weren't able to participate. We're also compiling a frequently asked questions document. We've already started to jump into that, and we will share that with this group and any other folks that are interested in pursuing this opportunity. We hope to get that out later on this week. So if you don't get your question answered today, and if we don't have the exact details, we will come back to it and we will provide that in that FAQ document. We got a bunch of folks here today, really excited. Thank you everyone for joining us. I would like to jump into the content here and hand it off to my colleague. It would be great to hear about who is on the phone or through Zoom here. If we could do, and I see that a few folks have already started to do this, if we could do the whole chat thing of putting your name and your organization into the chat, that would be a great way for us to understand who jumped in and who's participating today. With that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague. And so I'd like to introduce Greg, I'm not going to do it, Greg, Goloboroko. There we go. I'm still trying, sorry about that. Greg is Washington County's very new Senior Workforce Development Coordinator. We are very excited to have him on board. And it's Greg's job to be managing these funds and working with you all and other county partners on workforce development. So Greg, I will turn it to you.
Thank you so much, Matt. I appreciate the introduction. Everyone, we are honored that you decided to join us today for a little bit of your time. We are going to be as respectful and mindful of all the questions, all the attendees, and all of your respective schedules. So if you wouldn't mind holding your questions until the end, we do have just a short program. We wanted to do a quick overview of what the RFEI is about. And then from there on, we will move into an open dialogue so we can get into the Q&A. As Matt did reference, we are recording this. If there are questions that you have, during the course of the presentation, you're welcome to type them into that chat box. We will be capturing all of that. And then over the course of the next day or two, we will also get these FAQs out to this group as well as the collective group of anyone who's interested in pursuing this funding opportunity, because we did want to make sure that anyone and everyone who had an interest in it was able to get this information. So we do appreciate all of you being here, and we're gonna just jump right into the PowerPoint. So give me one sec to pull that little guy up for you. And I believe that should be on the screen now. Matt, if you can confirm that for me, because I see it on mine. Wonderful.
Yep,
so
it's there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I do want to reiterate, some of this may seem familiar because it did come out of the RFEI. There is some additional language we added in just to clarify. We modified a couple of the components here, but this is really the highlight of what the intent, what the purpose, what really the goal of this funding opportunity is about, and why you're all here today. So the purpose of this really is just to solicit organizations that have an interest in partnering with Washington County on near-term workforce development initiatives targeted at addressing the local pandemic-era workforce challenges. That is not to say that we are just looking for training tracks to get into employment. We are looking at a collective suite of services, programs, offerings that we can possibly invest, but also expand as a resource to residents within Washington County. So we did want to kind of preface that with this RFEI announcement. No funding is going to be awarded as a result of this direct solicitation for round one. This is essentially to put together a list of programs of partners who are interested in pursuing funding. We will review the initial proposals that'll be submitted, and then we will put together a short list of programs of agencies, organizations that have submitted that we'd want to look at a more comprehensive proposal from. So we did want to preface that in this initial conversation. So the focus area with respect to these funds, really, we are looking for multiple partners to provide services throughout Washington County. We're looking to provide on-ramps and related trainings and wraparound supports for our job seekers, for our trainees. We're looking to connect residents to quality jobs, addressing workers who have been displaced by the pandemic, as well as marginalized communities. We're really looking at the hardest populations to serve. We're looking at the folks who traditionally may even fall through the cracks at times. We're really looking as a big picture model here of addressing the needs of our community within Washington County as a whole. We also have a very substantial youth component to this. We'd like to focus on youth and underemployed workers looking at career opportunities. So there's going to be an emphasis on the youth track as well as the adult track here. So I do want to clarify that, this is not just for adult job seekers who maybe already have some training under their belt. We are open and looking at as many unique and innovative approaches to this funding. We would like to look at industry-specific job training opportunities to increase economic mobility for incumbent workers. We're also looking to expand service capacity for existing and emerging local workforce development programs. And again, I think the key there is through that collaborative partnership. We're really looking to build out the workforce system in Washington County, bring more partners on board, have more collaboration between stakeholders and providers in order to provide as much wraparound support for our job seekers as we can. And then obviously, last but not least, administer and manage the range of workforce services and programs on behalf of the county. The initiative goals as a whole, so these are ARPA dollars. These are the American Rescue Plan Act funds, so these are federal dollars. And in general, the goals of the initiative are to provide support and assistance to individuals that have lost their jobs or have otherwise faced negative economic consequences resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic, where the county is looking to strategically invest in local workforce partners to build and expand the capacity in the local workforce development system. We're looking to create new opportunities for workers to enter or advance in their careers. And we're also looking at career exploration opportunities and basic classes to retaining or rapid training programs and scholarships, etc. The idea is we want to continue to build upon the amazing programming already in place, but also seeing how we can scale up, how we can provide new opportunities, new partnerships, and be a little more strategic with our investment as a whole. We're also looking at developing industry-targeted training programs to address the worker deficit in local industries. So yes, some of these are going to be targeted sectors when we talk about healthcare, manufacturing, construction, but also we're looking at sectors such as leisure and hospitality in order to see if there's opportunity there for maybe some of our lower skilled workers to get into some basic workforce opportunities and then build up their skills from there. So there is a lot of flexibility with respect to the types of jobs and programs that we're looking to support here. The submission requirements, again, this is all in the RFEI document that was sent out to, I think, all the attendees here, as well as a handful of other folks who couldn't make it today. This is just a high-level quick overview. We want to know who you are when you're providing this information to us, who the contact person is, a description of your organization so we know how it aligns, and it gives us a little better sense of who you are as an entity, what footprint you currently have in Washington County, and how we potentially could leverage that relationship, that history, so that we can build from there. Pardon me, sorry, mouse got away. So we're looking at a short description of how your organization will engage with the community and benefit traditionally disadvantaged communities. So within the county, so we are specifically looking to implement culturally competent and linguistically relevant outreach approaches and programs in order to really address some of the populations that don't typically get the services and the resources that are required within our county. A short summary level description of the services the organization would like to propose and provide. Again, a description of the type and scale of the services, where the services will be delivered in the county, how those services will be delivered, whether in person, remote, etc. Who the services will target, which demographics specifically do you foresee really supporting here? How the program will target workers in traditionally disadvantaged communities, as well as the business sector. So obviously this is going to be a two-pronged approach where we want to make sure that we're addressing the needs of the workers in the community, but also there's an opportunity here for more collaboration, more partnership, more intentional engagement with the business community. We really want to stress that from the standpoint of, these trainings are fantastic, but we ultimately want them to lead to employment, right? So we want to make sure that we have strong relationships with our business community who are aware of what it is that we're providing, what it is that we're training for, so that they can then be ready to essentially take these individuals on upon completion. So there's definitely a lot more conversation that will happen around that. The metrics that will be employed to demonstrate program success, we'd love to know exactly what your metrics are that you are going to be tracking that show that these programs, that these deliverables really are attainable and they're realistic and impactful in our community. A timeline of how rapidly services could be implemented within the county, and additionally how the county support would leverage other non-concurrent investments. Concurrent investments rather, my apologies. We are looking for a little bit of a budget estimate or proposed timeline. Please understand this is not a detailed line item budget that we are requesting, just a general overview of how much you're looking for support services, personnel, indirect. Again, we are not looking to identify specific staff or specific funds. It's just to give us an idea of, what are you able to do with these funds, what your reach could be, and also what the timeline is to really get these funds out in the community to make that impact. And we would love to know, obviously, what alternative funding sources exist that you would be leveraging in order to continue this programming or to build upon it. And then for schedule and timeline. So, last week we released the RFEI, and then this week we were holding our first listening session. The intent of this was very strategic, very carefully thought out with respect to how we did this outreach. We wanted to connect with some of the smaller organizations in Washington County who don't typically join these conversations, but they bring a lot of value to the community in terms of the partnerships and the services they provide to our residents. We love the fact that we have such a diverse group here today in attendance. And I know that there's opportunity for us to expand and build upon these relationships. So we're really thrilled that you're here today to have a very open dialogue around exactly what kind of programming these funds could support and what ideas you have. Those are going to be critical for us. So we are putting an FAQ list together at the end of this session, and over the next day or two, we will get that out to the community. So you are able to reference and get additional information for questions you may have. But beyond that, this is just a high level, quick little overview in terms of what we would request of your submission on the 24th. We are not asking for a 20-page proposal, right? A full RFP or grant application. This is pretty high level overview. Just give us the 10,000-foot overview of what kind of program you're looking to bring into the county, what kind of support this would provide, what kind of impact these dollars would have, and really just give us an idea of what it is that you're looking to do and how can we be a partner for you. So that's where kind of this intent was. Now, one piece I did want to preface, and I don't believe that we touched on this, is, we are looking at these dollars to be a one-time source. So in other words, one-time infusion from the county to the community. So part of our ask of you is also going to be to give us an idea of, one, how these funds will be used in the short run, but two, we would like to know what is your plan for program continuation, expansion, and sustainability, because these funds cannot be guaranteed long-term. So we do want to make sure that you have that on your minds as you're putting, some of your questions together and your overall proposals. But our goal as a county is to make to essentially create a system around workforce development within Washington County that brings more partners together, brings more collaboration together. So we're leveraging each other's strengths, we're leaning on each other when it's appropriate, but also addressing some of the systematic challenges or gaps that currently exist with respect to these types of programs and services being provided in our county. So with that, I believe I ran through it pretty quickly, but I'm going to turn it over to Matt for a second to see if there are any additional gaps that he wanted to touch on before we open it up to a greater discussion.
Great, thanks, Greg. Terrific overview. I will put forward that this is the primary process by which the county is looking to develop partnerships and fund services and organization under the county's Tranche 1 workforce dollars. So you'll see it on page 5 of the RFEI. This is our intended process to develop and create contracts with organizations. So you shouldn't expect that there are other things going on. This is primarily it for the county's workforce development Tranche 1 dollars. If you're unfamiliar with with ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act, the dollars come to local governments in two tranches, 2 buckets, one of which was released this past year, another one of which will be released this coming year, this summer rather. The county we haven't received those funds. Planning for those funds and thinking about how we might approach those funds and the needs and challenges that they need to speak to, that process has not started yet. So and that's a board level conversation that's going to be going on. So this is our kind of primary push with workforce development dollars, is what I'm trying to say. So Greg, that's the only thing I have there. So with that, again, we have a bunch of time here. We'd like to open it up to you all for questions.
So on that, I do just want to double check something. So Matt, I believe you and I as the host, I think folks will have to raise their hand in the chat. I'm not sure if they can unmute themselves. I just want to double check on that. So if folks have a question, if you want to raise your hand or if you want to put a comment in the chat feature, we'll go ahead and unmute you. Or if you're able to unmute yourself, we can try to work on an honor system here, but it's going to be a little tough trying not to talk over each other. So
Greg, and I can field questions in the chat. And there's a question from Rebecca from ERCO that says, other federal programming that's been coming down have set limits on client assistance. Are there any limits for this federal program around client assistance support services separate from training costs?
So Rebecca, that is a fantastic question. And I am going to have to, unfortunately, punt on it from the standpoint of I'd love to give you an answer, but I honestly would need to go back and take a look at our guidance to make sure that we have the right information. So Rebecca, without saying yes or no, let me take a look at our language that we received, and I will make sure to get back to you on this, and we'll absolutely include this as part of our FAQs for additional clarity to everyone else who's also on this call, because that's a wonderful question, and I'd hate to get your hopes up with something that we may not be able to support. So thank you for that. Matt, if you have any additional context.
Yeah, I can provide a little bit more context there, Rebecca. Part of it is that we have received, the county works with, and I'm sure you all work with, different pots of federal dollars. And we know that each of those different buckets of federal dollars come with different limitations. So community development block grants, you might be all familiar with, and they have very rigid both programmatic and financial reporting requirements there. The final ruling for the ARPA funds just came through, and our colleagues in the county's finance department and our ARPA team has been reviewing all of those. And one of the aspects of ARPA that's pretty unique is that it does have quite a bit of flexibility in use and eligibility. And so to Greg's point, we will get back and be looking for kind of the detailed answer to your question. However, we've been advised that we do have some flexibility of use and of eligibility with these dollars, more so than other kind of traditional federal grant programs.
Mhm. Thank you so much for that, Matt. All right, so we do have a few other questions. So
I
let's
can
go
jump
ahead
in
and
there. Yeah,
sorry?
Emily says, are there industries that are priority for this funding?
So Emily, that's a great question. So from a workforce perspective, we do have targeted sectors that we'd like to support, but also, as you saw earlier in the PowerPoint, as well as that's called out in the RFEI, yes, we would like to focus on those targeted sectors, but we also want to make as much of an impact in the community to support some of our marginalized community members that maybe don't have the experience, the training, the know-how to get into some of those higher wage in demand occupations. So as a result, sectors such as leisure and hospitality will also be a consideration here. We're really looking at yourselves as being the subject matter experts with respect to what community needs are and what and the types of services you're able to deliver. So we would absolutely be open to, I think, applications and proposals that address multiple sectors. We would absolutely just want to hear from you which one specifically that you are thinking of here, if they're outside of our traditional, whether it's tech, manufacturing, construction, etc. So I think we're open to it. And part of the guidance that we've received around this funding is, it's really up to us to make the case that, these dollars will have an impact, that we're addressing the needs of the community. So I think if we can make a good argument for the types of occupations or sectors that you're looking to address here, we would absolutely be open to that consideration.
Thanks, Greg. The next question in the chat, Greg, is from Arthur Davis. And his question is, do services need to take place in the county?
So that's an interesting question, and I think we're gonna have to research this a little bit. Arthur, it's a yes and no. So we would so obviously the service, the individuals receiving the services, we would need for them to be Washington County residents. With respect to if the services themselves are conducted in Washington County, I think that's something we would need to take a look at, take back to on our end and discuss in more detail. Because a lot of trainings are done remotely right now, I think we do have some flexibility, but I also don't want to say, we can do it in Multnomah or Clackamas or Marion without confirming on our end. So let me take that one, let me put a pin in it and get back to you on that, if that's okay. Matt, if you want to provide any additional context there.
Yeah, no, thanks, Greg. I think that is the answer, is that these dollars are, they're Washington County dollars, and so they should be spent for Washington County residents and businesses. Now, can Washington County residents cross county lines for some training that's really important for them? Yes. Do we have all of that infrastructure? That's the wrong term here. Do we have all of the kind of training centers and opportunities here within the county? Maybe we don't. And so it is a good question because it really gets to some unique circumstances, doesn't it? So I would definitely be open to it, all while keeping an eye to, okay, how does this serve the residents, the workers, and the businesses within Washington County?
So could I ask a clarifying question?
Absolutely.
Yes, go ahead, Arthur.
Yeah, so it sounds like, for example, if we have a training center, with unique attributes in another county, then they could, in the metro area, they might travel there. But am I also hearing, for example, if it's just a general classroom that happens to take place in, say, Multnomah, would the thinking be, well, gosh, we could have that kind of classroom in Washington County, and that would be preferable. So if it's not something that's kind of unique in terms of the training center or other factors, would then there be the preference for, well, we'd like you to then bring this education out here, for example, from another county?
Yeah, it's a great question, Arthur. As we have conversation with board members and others across Washington County, there is definitely the interest to make sure that there is access to this type of training within Washington County. And we know that time and distance, these things make a difference. And like Greg said, we can do Zoom trainings here and there. Sometimes they're almost as good as something in real life. But if you're, learning to be a technician and you need your hands on that lathe, or if you're, training to be a CNA, and part of that is human interaction and doing some role playing for being a caregiver, those are things too that are hard to emulate through an online platform. And while maybe the classroom could be in Multnomah County or somewhere else, again, how are we thinking about access, and how are we thinking about access, especially for those residents and those workers that have been underserved and haven't had all of those opportunities? So I'd say, Arthur, to answer your question, really, we would prefer and look at programs within Washington County. If there's a strong argument for why it's not in Washington County and it doesn't exist, then let's take a look at that, because I do realize that there are some nuanced answers here. So great question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification, Matt. Arthur, great question. And also, I think to kind of build upon your answer, these folks that we're looking to serve with these monies, with these resources, they already have some transportation challenges, childcare challenges, possible housing insecurity as a whole. So what we are asking from everyone on this call and everyone who's interested in submitting a proposal, think outside the box. We're looking at innovative approaches. We're looking at collaborative proposals and approaches. We'd like to know how we can leverage each other's strengths in order to address some of these challenges for the job seekers. So, if there's already a program that exists in a different county, can we leverage that? Can we partner with them to provide this service locally? Things of that nature. That's really kind of where our minds are at, because we don't necessarily want to reinvent the wheel, but we absolutely have to bring these services and the level of support needed to our residents here. So how do we have the most impact with these monies, with this funding, in order to provide service and support to as many residents of the county as possible? So
we've got a few more questions here in the chat, so I'll just go through them. John asks, in addition to the FAQ, will this recording be made available on the website? Tons of good info here. Thanks, John. Yes, we can put this on the county's website. We can do that. So thank you. And the county has, I hope it's an easily Googleable. I think it is. If you Google Washington County Economic Recovery, that should hit the page. And we're trying to put everything up there. We are also working on a new county website. So we'll look for that soon, and hopefully that will be a better kind of platform for these things. Next question is from Pamela. And Pamela says, our organization offers services for a number of departments, and this opportunity happens to fit 2 departments. Is it allowable to apply for more than one project per organization? And if so, is it possible to apply once for both projects, or should there be 2 separate applications?
Boy, Pamela, it's almost as if you're standing behind me and looking at the draft FAQs that I am putting together as we speak. That's a fantastic question. It's something that we've gone back and forth on. So I think we'll definitely have more guidance around this on the FAQ side. We're really going to punt this to the applicant, to the organization. If you think that you could describe the needs that you have and the types of programming you're looking to support for maybe 2 departments or 2 programs, if you can fit all of that in, short and sweet and concise in this initial round, I think we'd be very open to it. To looking at it, considering, we are also going to be looking at collaborative approaches. So if there's a program, for instance, that you're looking at advancing forward, building out, scaling up, if there's another partner in the community that you have been considering approaching about this, I think that might be an opportunity for this conversation to go to that next level. And I think that also opens up some new doors. We did not get to a final answer on how many applications each organization will be allowed to submit. That is definitely something that Matt and I are going to be going back to after this discussion today, and getting some more guidance to all of you around. But we're really looking to all of you on this call and those that aren't unfortunately able to attend today to really tell us what is the most meaningful impact that these dollars can make in the community. So how much would you need to advance a program forward, to provide services to X number of individuals, to serve these particular individuals, these communities, these residents, and what funding are you looking to be able to leverage in order to increase that scope? What partnerships would you be looking to establish? How can we support you? You know, if you can make that argument for us, I think right now, and Matt, stop me if I overstep here, but we are very much open to innovative approaches, creative ideas, ways that we can build this system in Washington County of more collective, more collaborative programming that will really help as many of our marginalized community members as possible. So we have a lot of traditional job seekers that we can all serve, and I think we've all seen that in our respective organizations, but this is really getting at the heart of the folks that have been impacted the most, and even some that have kind of fallen through the cracks over these last 2 years of the pandemic. How can we provide additional resources to them? How can we support them? How can we increase the offerings in the county that currently exist? But also looking at sustainability, long-term planning around them. So.
Thank you, Greg. And I was going to add to Pamela's question, and I see Claudia picked up on it too. Claudia, so jumping down the questions here, I will come back to the ones above. A follow-up to Pamela's question, Claudia says, to clarify, we can submit a collaborative proposal for consideration to the RFEI. If so, can one of the partner orgs also apply on their own? And it just real quickly, and then Greg, I'll let you take the rest of this, is that yes, you know, we definitely want to be looking for collaborative answers here and looking for partnerships between organizations. And we know that there is a benefit there, being able to share and amplify resources between organizations. And we know that that's how a lot of this work is done, whether it's an educational institution partnering with a private companies within a specific industry, or a nonprofit partnering with a school district around a certain kind of training or retraining. Definitely be very interested in seeing multiple organizations come together around one proposal. Greg, do you have any follow-up on that?
I think that summed it up perfectly. Thank you.
Can I ask just a quick follow-up? Sorry to just
yes, Emily, go ahead.
Pound it into the ground. But so let's say we do submit a proposal in collaboration with other organizations. I'm a little bit confused if what is being evaluated is the project idea or the organization and its qualifications. So if we want to be considered, like if the collaborative proposal doesn't have legs, but we still want to be considered as an individual organization as well, would we submit 2 different responses to this? Or does the one get us in the door and we're good?
Matt, I'll take this if you don't mind for a second. So Emily, I think to clarify on that, so we would want for you to put forward your strongest application, your strongest collaborative partnership proposal, what have you. I think if you're putting together a collaborative proposal with another organization, another entity, we would absolutely love to see that, because that shows us the partnership, the collaboration, the work together with other entities. So we can, that way we have, I think, the ability to use the strengths from multiple partners to still deliver services and look at what other resources are available kind of on the trajectory there. That will not preclude you from submitting your own application. If you have a strong proposal as an individual entity, I think would be very open to that. I would just be mindful that I think, you know, if you're submitting an application from just your organization, that it's not a, you know, it's not too closely tied to maybe the group one, so we can make that differentiation, right? We want to make sure that we can tell the difference between the two. So if this is something that, you know, you think you could do better as a collaborative, we would obviously love to see that proposal. But if you also think that there's an element of it you can still deliver on your own, then I think we would also be open to that proposal as well. So
thank you.
Thanks, Emily. Let's see, jumping back into the questions. I think, let's see, I think the next question that we had actually was Emily from you as well. Are you able to share the amount of funding available and what range of project budgets you expect to be able to fund?
It is amazing how the FAQs that we are putting together are exactly hitting on these very points. So without getting into too much on the specifics, we did get a chance to discuss in terms of the amount of the total fund. Now, what we wanted to share was we have around, and Matt, wave to me if I shouldn't say, okay. So we have around $2 million that we would like to put out into the community to make as much of an investment impact as possible. Now, having said that, what I'm hopeful is that every partner on this call did not just hear they're going to submit an application for $2 million, right? What we are asking for is for you to go back to your respective boards, your organizations, your staff, and evaluate how much monies would it take to make an impact based on the program that you are proposing. So if it takes 25,000 or 50,000, that's what your proposal should focus on. If you need additional funds, make the argument, make the case for it, right? Again, we're not looking for a full proposal. We're not looking for, this is not a full RFP. This is not a full budget submission process. Give us an idea of what those monies will do in the community. How can you leverage your other investments to increase scope? And then from there, that's what we would be evaluating. So it's really, you know, we don't want folks to get too hung up on the amounts. The overall fund is roughly $2 million. We would love to see a wide assortment of applications, partners, and, you know, really the intent of this long-term is to build a system where we can all work together and leverage each other's strengths. So think of those collaborative proposals. Think of those innovative approaches to deliver services, programs, trainings. That's really where our mind is going to be, I think, focused on. So Matt, I'll let you elaborate on that if you would like, sir.
Oh, I think that's great. Thank you, Greg.
Mm-hmm.
The next question is from Rebecca. We had heard that there would be also some funding portion to help small business economic development around technical assistance, coaching, grant or loan application assistance. Is this funding inclusive of that, or will there be a separate RFEI for that? Greg, I can take that one.
Please.
That is a separate bucket of ARPA funding that we will be working to get out the door here over the next few months. Not prepared to talk much more about that process right now, but to say that it is, Rebecca, as you point out, focused on small businesses and entrepreneurs. We are thinking about technical assistance, coaching, all of the things that you mentioned in there, and have been working with partners to be thinking about how that work can be most impactful. It could be helpful, so thinking about your question and the previous question about funding too, you could find it helpful to review the county's ARPA framework and a presentation that that I and a few other staff members gave to the Board of County Commissioners in early of September 2021. I am forgetting the date. I think it was right after Labor Day, September 7th, maybe. Go ahead and look it up. It's in there, and it should also be on Washington County's ARPA page. So within that presentation, within that package, it describes the framework that the county is using for all of its ARPA dollars. And it breaks up the county's first tranche of ARPA funds into those buckets. So that should provide you, at least at a high level, a window into the funding, where the funding is going, the direction of the Board of County Commissioners about how it should be spent. So, but you're right. So please, we will have an announcement very soon about the small business focused dollars. The next question is from Rachel. Would you consider RAP services to support folks stabilizing lives, getting into workforce after being kept out, even if the program did not include direct workforce programming or only programming that has a direct tie to workforce?
Rachel, if I could ask you to unmute yourself and give us a little more context here. I just want to make sure I fully understand what kind of programming for RAP services that you're referencing here, if you don't mind.
Sure. I just mean programs that aren't offering direct workforce services, like not direct training programs, not direct pipelines, those sorts of things, but are more on the social services side, that are offering stabilization services to help folks get back into a stable place to enter the workforce, knowing that the folks need to be able to enter the workforce and they're currently lacking that, but first they need a series of stabilizations in order to get there.
Yeah, no, I think that's a phenomenal question. I really appreciate the clarification on that. I think from the county standpoint, I think what I would suggest is submit an application and make the argument, make your, I guess, give us the reasoning, the rationale behind what these dollars would do to help out residents of Washington County, because stabilization, right, is going to be key for these individuals before they're ready for employment. Excuse me. We understand that there are multiple models, whether it's a housing first model, employment first model, to get folks stabilized. I think we're open to any and all partnerships, ideas, innovative approaches to addressing some of those underlying concerns and challenges that our workforce has in order to get them ready for that next step in the process. So I wouldn't necessarily say no to an application or a proposal in that category. I think what I would just need to make sure is I'm able to connect the dots of how it's going to help the residents to get their situation stabilized to a point where they will then be ready for workforce training, for additional development programming, and then how can we tie that all together? So again, I think it kind of goes back to make the argument, right? I'm a very strong believer the answer is always no unless you ask. So I would love to see an approach here. I would love to see a proposal that talks to how we're going to address some of those underlying challenges that some of our more barriered populations have. And I think if I'm reading this right, these may be some folks who are re-entering out of the criminal justice system, for instance. So there's definitely opportunity there to help them with supports in order to get stable. But I would need for you in this case to really make that connection very clear for me of what exactly you're asking and how does this support them long-term and short-term, right? So make those connection points for me. And I think we'd be very open to looking at any and every type of funding opportunity. So.
That's great. Is it okay if I ask a follow-up question, Matt?
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Rachel.
So our program actually works with victims and survivors of like domestic violence, sexual violence, child abuse, et cetera. And so the opposite of coming out of the criminal justice system. However, in a lot of cases there are, and so my question is, do you consider people with disabilities or people with additional mental health concerns, et cetera, to be able to be expanded to temporary disability, such as they are coming out of a domestic violence relationship, for instance, haven't been allowed to be in the workforce for 10, 20 years, or have some significant PTSD, things like that, as something that might qualify?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna, and I really appreciate you giving us a little more context here. I think the answer is still going to be fairly close with respect to make the case for us of how we can support these individuals, what types of supports they'd be receiving that would then help stabilize them overall to be ready for that next step. It's really difficult for me to just say yes, no with respect to these kinds of answers because there's so much nuances that every single case is going to be different, but not just on your participants, but also each organization here. We're looking for in actuality, in all reality, we're looking for ways to get these folks, all the supports they need. These individuals, if they were somehow impacted by the pandemic, and it seems like, I'm not sure if there's anybody out there who hasn't been, if you can make that case, if you can show us how these supports, these services will help them with their overall stability and in turn get them to that next level of work readiness, I think we would be very open to seeing a proposal and seeing like how creative and innovative those approaches could be. So great. Matt, if you want to add anything or clarify there for me.
No, that's great. Yeah, thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Moving to the next question here from Tanya from Youth Builders. Since we're responding to an RFEI and not submitting full proposals at this time, are you looking for organizational program budgets or project-specific budgets that we may eventually, hopefully, be applying for?
Yeah, great question, Tanya. I think just the project budget would really be what we're looking for at this point. If you do have any leverage funding or any additional funding sources that you would like to consider in terms of long-term sustainability and expansion of programming, et cetera, I would definitely include that in there, but we're not looking for your full organizational budget of how many programs you have, how many staff you have to oversee, et cetera. It's really, what will it take financially for you to stand up this program or to expand additional programming? What kind of impact can you have with this amount of monies? How much of it are you anticipating for staff versus direct service, indirect cost? But I wouldn't need exact percentages and fractions and things like fringe benefits, for instance. That would be going to the next level. Yep. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Greg. And Claudia, I think we answered your first question. The next question down below is, for folks who qualify and are eligible to apply in winter 2022, 1, when are the funds likely to be available? And 2, how long will folks have to spend the funds?
Great question. Claudia, I'm going to defer this to Matt for a second on the timeline component, just to make sure that we have the dates right. And Matt, if you don't mind taking that, thank you.
Yeah, happy to jump in, Greg. Greg, actually, you could pop up the timeline slide. So again, we're using a 2-step process here. We're using the RFEI to look for partners, organizations, and the concepts that they're moving forward. Thank you, which is due in February of this month, or excuse me, February 24th of this month. And then from there, we have the second invitation to apply. And again, all of these details are in the RFEI from there. We would like to get these contracts going kind of as soon as we can. We know that there's a lot of need, and so we would like to move towards contracts in the spring of this year. ARPA funding does have a time limit here. So ARPA funds need to be allocated by the end of 2024 and need to be spent by the end of 2026. I anticipate that the dollars coming out of this bucket would probably be spent in the next couple years. If we would entertain longer timelines for sure. But again, those are the federal guidance around excuse me, ARPA dollars. So allocated, so you need to have the plan for them by the end of 2024 and spent by 2026.
Thank you so much, Matt. And just to clarify, that is not the same as we will not award contracts or start programming until 2024. We will not wait for 2 years for this. We are looking to get these out in the community as quickly as possible, but not at the expense of quality programming. So I do want to stress that, as much as we do have a sense of urgency to get these out in the community, we want to make sure that we're going to have the most impactful way of getting them out there in terms of making sure that quality programming is provided for our participants, through our partners, through our community organization. So please kind of take that as a nugget, so to speak.
Great, thank you, Greg. Emily has another question, which is, are there any are there any important or unusual federal compliance requirements associated with ARPA that would be passed down to partners that we should know about? I can start, Greg.
Sure.
I guess the first way to answer this is like my earlier answer is that we have found that the ARPA dollars are more flexible than other federal buckets that we have seen, and there's quite a bit of flexibility around that. And I think that, Greg, we have a link in the FAQ that we'll send out that has a synopsis of the ARPA guidance and talks about that. I will say that we are looking to do sub-recipient grant contracts through this opportunity. And so the sub-recipient contractor relationship comes with detailed programmatic and financial reporting. The program evaluation part of this work is very important. We are working to advance kind of better reporting here at the county about the work that we're doing and where these dollars are going. We would work with each contractor to think about what that looks like, what your targets are, how you're tracking getting to those targets. But there would be programmatic, would be a strong programmatic reporting part of this work. For the financial reporting, again, the sub-recipient relationship does look for some pretty detailed financial reports, including what your reimbursables are, documenting payments, things like that. I guess I will say that if your organization doesn't have the capacity to do that kind of work, and you have this concept that you want to advance, please continue to respond to this RFI and maybe look for other partners that might be able to take on that type of work. So for example, if there is an umbrella organization that could be the master contract holder and sub-recipients or subcontractors that are doing some of the work, that is acceptable under this funding. We don't want to, for smaller organizations or organizations that don't have that capacity in-house, we do want to make sure that these funds are available to those organizations, because we know that those organizations do such important work in this space. So Greg, what did I miss there?
No, I think that hit it right on. We definitely don't want organizations to miss out on this opportunity because they may not have the capacity to do the fiscal component of the reporting evaluation piece. Please reach out to us in advance. I don't believe that there's anything that would prohibit us from providing additional technical assistance, providing support, looking at ways to make sure that, if you have a good program design idea, we want to see it come to fruition. We want to and will do everything in our power to support you in that process. So if there's a particular hang up that you're concerned about, please reach out to us earlier. If we can troubleshoot, if we can connect you with a different entity that might be able to address that shortcoming, we'd be more than happy to do that legwork with you. We just want to make sure that you're not saying no to this opportunity because you're not sure about that fiscal end. This is really about the relationships, the collaborative approaches, and we will do everything in our power to make sure that, not only yourselves are successful, not only is the county partnership successful, but really we're providing a product and a quality one at that to our community, both the business community and the job seeker side, the labor shed side. Yep.
Great. Emily has a follow-up question. Are there limitations on indirect costs?
I think indirect costs, if you have a federally recognized indirect cost rate, that's where, that's pretty much going to be your limit. If you have any specific questions beyond that or variances, let us know in advance, and we'll obviously, send it up the flagpole, figure out exactly what kind of guidance or limitations or requirements there are. But if you're thinking of something outside of your federally approved rate, we definitely would want to know about it in advance.
Great, thanks, Greg. So Tanya has another question, which is, you've mentioned collaboration numerous times. What are you looking for along the spectrum of formal MOUs versus informal partnerships?
So when we say collaboration partnerships, so the entities that are on this call, for instance, if there are several entities here who are thinking, boy, I really would want to submit a proposal regarding A, B, and C, and organizations, C, E, and F, absolutely fit that bill. They could deliver some of these services. We could deliver the second component. Reach out to one another. That's what I'm thinking of partnership. I'm not necessarily looking for MOUs at this point. I think there's going to be an opportunity or a possible ask on the next round for that level of detail. Right now, we're just really looking at your proposal either as individual entities or as groups collaboration with respect to the partners who are here or others in the community that you're aware of. So I am not requiring that every application is a collaborative proposal with another entity or multiple entities. We're trying to think of how we can stretch these dollars the furthest, the longest, and have the most impact. So that's why we keep bringing up the idea of leveraging other resources, capacity, staff from other organizations versus their talent. So that's where that component was coming in from. So thank you, Tanya.
Great, thank you. Another question from Arthur, which is, many nonprofits don't have federally approved rates. Should we use 10% de minimis or some other number as a default, or should we all contact you individually?
Great question, Arthur. I will not be able to answer this on this call. That is something we would absolutely want to come back and check with our programmatic staff. So I will make sure that this answer gets addressed both in the FAQs and then also for any and all partners that might have the similar question. So I just don't know what to tell you, and I would not even begin to, venture a guess of a number right now, because I don't think that would be fair to anybody on this call.
Okay, we're just about out of time here today. Does anyone else have any other questions or any other follow-up questions? No? Okay, well, one thing I will add is that we do completely recognize that we do this work together. And we're really looking forward to seeing these proposals. We know that it takes this kind of partnership, this kind of collaboration with organizations like you all to make sure that there's really strong impacts within communities. So please reach out to us when you have questions. Greg is compiling this FAQ. We're going to get that out as soon as we can. So thank you everyone for joining. We're really looking forward to seeing what you all come up with here.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for attending. We look forward to all of your proposals, and we can't wait to build this system, to the level that we absolutely should have it for Washington County. So this is really exciting to have all of you here today, and we look forward to hearing your proposals.
Great.
All right.
Thanks, everyone. Go enjoy the
so much,
sun.
everyone.
Go enjoy the sun before it's gone.